So today we're going to start with adding and subtracting integers. There will be no calculators allowed on this lesson. So let's start. I just want to talk a little bit about the positive and negative sign. The negative sign is always more powerful than the positive sign. So let's think about this for a second. You and your friends are having a great time. Everyone's thumbs up. And some negative Nelly comes into the group. What happens? Everybody is now brought down by this crying baby, right? So I say this because if a number has two signs in front of it, you need to pick one. And I would always pick the negative sign. So my example here says 6 plus negative 3. Well, you can see that this 3 has two signs in front of it. I don't like that, so I want you to pick just one of them. Because the negative sign is always more powerful than the positive, I'm going to get rid of this positive, and it just becomes a simple 6 minus 3. So always think about that. Try and have just one sign in front of your numbers. This is just a regular number line. It's not an integer number line. And I just am showing you this because what we're going to be doing today is nothing different than you have always been doing. So when you add numbers, you always move to the right. And when you subtract numbers, you move to the left. So let's say I was doing 7 plus 4. I'm going to start at 7, and because I'm adding, I'm moving to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my answer would be 11. So now let's say I want to subtract something. So I'm going to let's do 10 minus 6. I'm going to start at 10 because I'm subtracting. I'm moving to the left 6 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And my answer is 4. So today we're going to be doing the same thing. We're just going to be using positive and negative numbers now instead of just positives. So here we go. Add, you move to the right. Subtract, you move to the left. So let's just do an example of one real quick. So I'm going to say, let's start with 10, and I'm going to subtract 12. So my starting point is this 10. I'm subtracting, so I'm moving to the left, and I'm going to move to the left 12 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. My answer is a negative 2, and that should kind of make sense to you because the number that I'm subtracting away is larger than what I am starting with. So I'm going to end up down here with a negative number. Let's try one going the other way. So let's say I'm down here at negative 3, and I'm going to add 7. My starting point is negative 3. I'm adding, so I am moving to the right. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And my answer will be a positive 4. You don't have to write the positive, but I'm just doing that for a point. And that should make sense to you too, because I'm adding a number that's larger than I started with. So I'm going to come out of that negative range and into the positives. So let's try a couple. Let's do negative 10 plus 7. So in your head, you should be thinking, I'm starting way down here at negative 10, and I'm adding 7. So I'm not adding anything that's greater than what I'm starting with. So my number should still be a negative number. So you should always have in mind where you think you're going to end up. So I'm at negative 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And sure enough, I am in the negative numbers. I'm a negative 3. Let's do 6 plus negative 10. I seem to be stuck on the number 10. Here's what I'm talking about is with these two signs. So this 10 has two things in front of it. It has this positive and it has a negative. Well, I'm going to pick one because adding a negative is very strange to me. So I'm just going to pick one. And because of that slide earlier where I said negatives are always more powerful, I'm going to pick the negative. That means what I really have is 6 minus 10. So I'm going to start at 6. And think about this. I'm subtracting something that's larger than I'm starting with. I should end up in the negative numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops, I did that wrong. Let me start that part again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And sure enough, I am at negative 4. Let's do negative 6 minus 5. So I'm starting down here at negative 6. I'm subtracting, so I'm moving to the left, and I'm going to do it 5 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My answer is a negative 11. I don't like writing in black. Let's write in purple or pink again. So let's say I'm going to start at negative 9, and I'm going to add a negative 3. Well, there are those two signs again. Remember, you can't have two signs in front of a number. What's more powerful? Negatives. So I'm going to get rid of that positive, and so what I really have is negative 9 minus 3. So I'm going to start down here at negative 9, subtracting, so I'm moving to the left. 1, 2, 3. And my answer should be a negative 12. What I kind of hope you're starting to see is really, what's the difference between 10 and 7? Isn't it 3? And 3 is negative because this 10 has a larger absolute value than the 7. And so my answer has to be a negative because I'm starting with a larger negative number. So if you look here at this other one, what's the difference between 6 and 10? Well, it's 4. But again, 10 has the larger absolute value and it's negative. So my answer is going to be negative. Here, really, the signs are the same. So I really have a negative 6 and a negative 5, and I'm just putting them together. Well, 6 plus 5 is 11. And since they're both negatives, my answer is going to be a negative. Same thing down here. I have a negative 9 and a negative 3. So I'm just going to put them together, and I have a negative 12. I like to think about it as money, too. So this screen's getting a little messy. I'll talk about money on the next screen. So let's just try a couple more. Let's say I have a negative 4, and I add 9. Let's think about this. I have negative 4 and I'm adding 9. My answer should be positive. And what's the difference between 9 and 4? It's 5. So I bet my answer is going to be a positive 5, but let's just check this out. I'm at negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sure enough, my answer is a positive 5. Let's do 8 minus, and I'm going to do something kind of tricky, negative, let's do 7. Well, that's kind of weird. Now I have two negatives next to each other. When I have two negatives next to each other, what they actually end up being is an addition problem. Because if I take away a negative, I'm really adding it back. So I'm going to go over that just real quick with just the logic of that. Let me just do this again. So here's where I'd like to talk about money. So I go to the store and I have $8 in my wallet. I return something that I spent $7 on. They don't take the money away from me again, right? When I go up to the register, they actually give it back to me. So now in my wallet, I have a positive $15. Let's come down to this next one. So let's do negative 2 minus 5. Well, 2 and 5, my answer should be 7, and they're both negatives. So I'm starting here at negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to end up with negative 7. Let's do negative 6 minus negative 3. So here's that store situation. I spent $6 on something. I'd go to the store to return something that I spent $3 on. They don't take the money from me again. They actually give it back to me. And now I'm only out $3 because if I'm at negative 6, now I'm adding. And I'm going to come back 1, 2, 3. I am at negative 3. use your number line, or if you're still kind of comfortable with that, I have some rules at the end of this if that helps you, but I think the number line can be pretty handy until you start to see what actually is going on. So let's start at 5, and I'm going to subtract 7. Well, I am subtracting away a 7, which is larger than my 5, so I should be at a negative number. Well, what's 7 minus 5? It's 2. So I should be at a negative 2. So let's just check that. Here's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sure enough, I'm at negative 2. Let's do negative 12 minus negative 10. So remember, when I'm subtracting away a negative number, I'm really putting it back. I hope that kind of logically makes sense. When you take away a negative, you're actually putting it back in. So I'm at negative 12. I'm way down here at negative 12. And I'm going to add 10. So I'm not adding anything greater than what I'm starting with, so I should stay negative. And I'm kind of thinking it's going to be a negative 2. So here I am at negative 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sure enough, there I am at negative 2. So I'm kind of hoping you're starting to see the logic of this. Let's just do a couple more here. So let's do 11 minus 6. Well, that's just an easy number, right? I'm starting here at 11. I'm subtracting 6. And I end up at 5. Do negative 8 minus negative 2. I'm taking away a negative, so I'm really adding it back. What's the difference between 8 and 2? It is 6. This is a larger number and it's negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative, and it will be 6. Here are the rules for kind of what's going on. I just like to do the visual of it, but I thought I'd give you the rules of it too. Use whichever way you like, I think, until you kind of get used to visualizing it. Maybe the number line is not a bad thing. Reach out, let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to be doing this both Monday and Tuesday. So if you have any questions, make sure you bring them with you when you come to school on Tuesday.